David Baker's here somewhere, and David's going to be a very entertaining guy later on for you guys. But anyway, this place you're on the Ferguson family farm. Mine and Renee's family have been here for 200 years. And the White House that you saw in the back, that's where I grew up. That was my great-grandfather's home, and it was so cold. And he was Captain Lindsey Ferguson. He was an officer in the Civil War. His first wife died, leaving him 4 little girls. This is why we think he didn't go fight in the war. But he was staying here as a home guard. He had a brother, 3 brothers that went to war. One brother came back. He was with Lee at Appomattox during the surrender. Came back carrying a cannonball, which we still have. And he became sheriff of Wilkes County. And there's a building there with his name still on it, Jesse Ferguson. And then the other 2 brothers died. There was a pandemic going on. A lot of people don't realize that pandemics have been going on for a long time. But my great-grandfather wasn't allowed to go and get the bodies. They stopped and said, you can't. There's disease and illness. You'll spread it. You'll get it, and you'll die. So he had to go back and then get it. So I can't imagine the condition of the bodies of his brothers to get them to bring them back here. But anyway, that was his home. And he married a woman named Sarah Kendall, who was my great-grandmother. I'm from her, and they had 7 children. She was college educated, and my husband, in restoring the old section of the old house, found a ledger. Captain Lindsey Ferguson ran the post office out of his home. She ran a library out of her home. And Dick found the ledger of the people checking out the books, Grimm's Fairy Tales, Robinson Crusoe, Uncle Tom's Cabin. This was following the Civil War. And I saw where black people had checked out books as well as the white folks, because I knew some of the names. So I thought that was so brave of her to open up her house. And there's one guy wrote on one page, "Don't want nobody hunting on my land." You know, so you have things like that going on with checking out books here in Ferguson back in the 1800s. But still, the old Ferguson mother was on it. So, but anyway, I thought I'd retire and help my mother run the village because she had weddings here, she had groups coming in. Well, right before I retired, my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and she died within a month of finding out she had cancer. And so I ended up with the village, and I didn't know who was booked for weddings, who was booked for tours, or what. And so I decided at that point, I talked to Mom about ideas that I had for the village, and she said, go for it, do it. But there's a focus here on 2 different people who came out of Ferguson, and one of them was Daniel Boone. Daniel Boone, in the 1700s, lived here longer than any other time in his life. He wasn't here that much. His wife was, and she deserved a medal for raising the kids on her own, teaching them to farm, how to shoot, how to make clothes, the whole 9 yards, while he was out exploring and hunting. But that was 20 years. 2 of the cabin sites are within a half mile from here. The other one is now into the Curscott Reservoir. But as you sent a group down, I guess it was last year before last, I had those sonar things that could tell where places were on the ground, and they identified where his cabin stood, where his barn was, and where his outhouse was on the Beaver Creek. So he was out of this community. But my Ferguson ancestors were here 4 years before Daniel Boone, so they were Daniel Boone's neighbors, and they knew each other. The Fergusons were from Scotland. We don't know if they were being punished by being sent to the colonies for fighting at the Battle of Culloden. We don't know that, but likely, because they did fight at the Battle of Culloden. Or if they sent to the colonies with an agreement to the king that they would not take arms against the crown. And which we think may be possible because when the Over Mountain Victory Men came through here, my Ferguson ancestors did not join the march because they were fighting one guy. It was a civil war, but they were fighting one guy from overseas, and his name was Patrick Ferguson. And if you've ever been to the Battle of Kings Mountain, his is a grave with rocks all over it from people throwing rocks at him. So anyway. Student poetry, just say so. It won't hurt my feelings. I said, but you just have to give me another name who can replace you. And he said, don't you dare take that honor away from me. I love reading and judging the student poetry. Well, last year it was so cold, and this is what a barn will help too. It was so cold we had to meet in the Tom Dooley Museum. That was, even though people were squeezed outside and on the porches and everything. And the kids don't know that they're going to have to read their own poem in front of everybody. And I think public speaking is important to learn to do. Having gone to church my whole life and being in church plays, and my mother handed me this and saying, you have to do that for church service or whatever, I learned to get comfortable with speaking publicly, but not all kids have that experience. So the kids read their own poem, and one little girl came up to me, and she was trembling, and there were tears in her eyes, and she said, I can't read my poem. And I put my arms around her, and I looked at her poem, and it was about having, what's it called, encephalitis, with the water on the brain. Mm-hmm. She wrote her poem about being a person with that illness. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'll read it for you. And I said, and everybody here loves you. And I read it, and everybody started crying. It was just like, and she was so scared, but it was such a magical moment that she got to express what she'd been living with in a poem, and that she was being recognized for it. So we depend on donations from people. I like to give the kids cash awards and sometimes some little memento to go with it for that event. That's always in April. And for Joseph Bethanti, he will not take payment, so we do a big basket full of everything, honey and jellies and all kinds of stuff for him. And that's in April. Then we open every third Saturday through October. But what we also do, our big event, is in September, and that's what's coming up. And it is, this has gotten a little bit damp, Daniel Boone and Scots in the Valley Festival. Next year it'll be Tom Dooley. We flip-flop them. But this is going to be the coolest thing because we have so many different things happening here. And if you saw this up close, I'll just pass this around and let you see. Now, I'm the organist at my church, but if I had to play this every Sunday, I tell everybody, okay, folks, we're going to sing one verse of one hymn. That's all we're going to sing. But long ago, men and women did sit on opposite sides, and there was a deacon who'd walk around with this thing, and it's called a nodding stick. Now, if you went to sleep, you get whacked on the head.
Take 5 of those to go.
We have some for sale in the books in Matt's stores.
I know the Finleys.
Who said that?
Well, aren't they the photographers in Hickory?
Alan isn't a photographer, but he might be.
Oh, is he an
Daniel
actor?
Boone stood looking
He's an
across the
actor.
swift
He plays with
flowing
a band
Yadkin
called
River.
2020.
He had just made the long and tiring
I
trip
think he
from
lives in
Pennsylvania with his family.
Hickory.
But already he was looking forward to hunting for game in this new land of North Carolina. Daniel was only 16 years old, but he was an outstanding marksman with a rifle. His father gave him his first rifle when he was only 13 years old. Daniel was born in Oley Township, Berks County, Pennsylvania, on October 22nd, 1734. His father, Squire Boone, came from England to the new country of America and settled in Pennsylvania. Later, Squire Boone married Sarah Morgan, and they had 11 children. Squire Boone found it difficult to provide for his large family, and he needed more land. When he heard of good land in North Carolina on the Yadkin River in Rowan County, he decided to move south. So with the women and children in wagons and the men and boys on horseback, they made their way through the Cumberland Valley to the fertile Yadkin River Valley. Growing up in Pennsylvania, Daniel had a great love for the wilderness and the hunter's life. After his father.
Where's your golf cart? Where's your golf bag?
I'm gonna go see who this is over here. Totem pole.
Hey folks, here we are at Whippoorwill Village and Academy. We are somewhere close to Ferguson, North Carolina, maybe. We're taking a tour of all of the different structures that are here. So far, we've been in the church building, maybe they call it a chapel, I'm not sure. And we've also been in Daniel Boone's hunting lodge. And we got to watch a movie about Daniel Boone, so that was really interesting. Took some video of some of that, so maybe you're watching that already or have seen that already. But a pretty neat place, and I'll include a picture of a advertisement for something coming up in September, and then also one in December as well, something that some of y'all may want to attend.
20th event. There was a third man from this area who is worthy of note, and that is a man named Hamp Kendall. Anybody know where Nelson's Chapel is in Caldwell County?
Yep.
Okay, Reverend Nelson's son was murdered back in 1906. Hamp Kendall and a man named John Vickers were accused of the crime, sent to prison for 10 years. When they found out it wasn't him at all, it was a man named Sam Green who did the killing. So anyway, Roy Lee wanted to honor Hamp by making him the judge, that he finally got his just reward on some little semblance of a dignity left to Hamp for doing this. But on September the 20th, our honorable sheriff right here, we're going to have a new show called Dateline 1906, Murder in the Valley, Hamp Kendall story. So he's going to be telling the story in the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's so much to this story. Anyway, our sheriff is going to reveal it all and bringing to light what really happened on that horrible, horrible day and those horrible years that two men served that did not deserve to go to prison. So he is very good at picking out guilty people, and I'll be happy to fill out these if you want to.
One of the things that we like about this village is that each member has many hats to wear. So I am going to be the Hamp Kendall on the 20th to tell the story, the dreaded story from the misty hills that surround us. And today I'm going to be Sheriff Hamp Kendall, who never was a sheriff. And should I find someone that needs to be adjudicated, I will put on my judge hat and we will adjudicate that. And we have a facility, modern I might say. It has indoor plumbing. It has an indoor bathroom for the roommates, jail cell members, or what do we call them in the diplomatic matter, instead of criminals and scum and dirtbags and all the rest of that kind of stuff. Okay, well, we're going to give y'all opportunity to tour this place. I do want to point out that this was not a real jail. This was actually a farmhouse or a living quarters, a log cabin. And it was built in that style. It was built in the late 1800s, and it was occupied, we know, up through World War II. And how do we know that? When the cabin was donated from a number of miles away and they toted it here, it had a loft in the top. And in the exploration, they found a World War II soldier's uniform. They went to pick it up and move it, and it just kind of fell apart in their hands, but they did save the buttons. Also up there was a sheaf of letters from the soldier that wore that uniform back to his family in his home in this log cabin. So up through World War II, imagine that. A kid over there in Germany, not know, maybe he was 18 years old, maybe he lied and he was only 16, 17 years old, but he called this log cabin home and he's willing to risk his life for it. That's America. Now let's get down to business. We have been very busy. You can come up. Yes, come up. We will invite you in, but first I can have some crimes, I need some criminals. So we'll just make this very diplomatic. So that anyone may take that. Now this is how modern we are. Every officer in this jail, in this county, in this village is issued their own porta potty. And they take it. And I'm a real tricky guy because I put my stuff on the bottom of it so everybody can see who it belongs to. So that's just some jailhouse trivia. Anybody else want to visit the jail? We'll just pass out. You can claim your crime.
I'm glad that box fan's working.
Yeah, that's an AC. I need somebody that's pretending to be from Boomer. Somebody from Boomer.
she wanted this building, and she said yes. So she bought this building. She was like in her 50s, still strong country woman. She dug out the foundation, had somebody put the foundation in, but she helped dig it out, and she had this building moved here. Originally, it was an 18 by 24 foot building, one room. The second floor was not here. Okay, this was put in later because the original Tom Dooley Museum was up there until we got a new building over here. The pot-bellied stove back there would heat this room. Of course, if this second floor was here, they'd run them out. It gets so hot. So this was a cathedral ceiling. If you look at the picture over here, let me point to it here. Right here. This is what it originally looked like, and that's the class of, I think, this is in the 1940s. This picture was taken in the 1940s. It's kind of decrepit now, but this is one of the graduating classes right there, and half of them are my kinfolk. My Margaret kinfolk. This building was built in 1880, and it was not a school for kids. This was not a place where you learn reading and writing and arithmetic. This is where people paid to come. It was only open 3 months out of the year, and of course that is in the wintertime, because in the summertime and fall, it's the harvesting and the seeding. So 2 months was paid by the county. The third month was paid by parents. So if you wanted to go further your education, you would come here. James Larkin Pearson, this gentleman right behind you, second poet laureate of North Carolina. We have a poetry event in his honor. He came here. He went to school over here, and he learned college-level courses. One of his poems he wrote about Whippoorwill was, "The empty schoolhouse lowly stands upon a wooded hill. Its inmates gay have roamed away, the noisy feet are still. I pause upon the battered step that marks the silent door, and sadly here," he wrote. There were other people who graduated from here, such as Blanche Ferguson, and she was a nurse down in Panama. There were engineers and advanced